Hey, Kaiju Kambo Deep Dive. I'm John, and this is episode 5 of our look into the histories of Charles H. Gaylord. My guest today, and I love this name, is Wolf Hillesheim. Thank you for joining us, Wolf.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. Wolf started training in Okinawan Karate in 1963 as a Marine, found Grandmaster Gaylord in 1965. He was the Kaiju Kambo treasurer from 67 to 69. Also a duathlete, number 1 ranked in the U.S. from 2011 to 2016, and has been on sparring teams along with the likes of Jim Nordley, Al Dacascos, Phil Corning, and Eric Lee. Wolf, that's a really cool list of names to say that you worked with, you sparred on the team with. How does it feel to look back on those times working with those people?
It was a real deal. There was no pads. There was no mouthpieces. Nobody was whining. People were just getting down, knuckle to knuckle, forward snap kicks. There was no spinning back kicks in those days. Koreans hadn't come to California. And that's when, so it was a real basic Hawaiian street fighting stuff that was happening. You couldn't brush your teeth for a couple of days after you fought a few times. Things like that. The real deal.
You couldn't brush your teeth. Why couldn't you brush your teeth?
I didn't block fast enough.
Okay, now I got what you're saying. I thought it was a hygiene thing. All right. So in those days, how did you find Grandmaster Gaylord? What was he like?
Oh, he was the man. He was the ultimate warrior. I left the Marine Corps and came home, and I immediately wanted to continue my karate experience. And when I came home, Grandmaster Gaylord at that time was a chief instructor. I mean, he wasn't even a chief yet. I think he was just an instructor, of course. So I immediately saw a couple of his techniques, what he worked out at, and I immediately joined the class. And it was interesting. It was in Richmond. It was right next to a bar. And the first 4 or 5 months of being there, he ended up throwing a couple of people through the plate glass window that came into place drunk. And that was very impressive. It was Hawaiian style.
Sounds like a pretty active time.
Oh, yeah.
What was the curriculum like? Had it changed much over the years? When you first started training there, what was that Kaiju Kambo curriculum like?
Well, Kaiju Kambo basically, there was 5 different instructors in Northern California that came over here, and I trained over the years with 2 of them, and the original Kaiju Kambo, which is KA, then JU, and then KEN, then the BO. Well, I always considered, for the Gaylords, KA the real karate, close to Okinawan style, the hardcore, the emphasis on drive and kicks through the bag and hit through the person, and when you worked out with each other, there was no mercy. You take it, you roll with a punch, and you get back up. He was a real karate portion of the Kaiju Kambo, and the other instructors, some of them taught the kung fu, the BO, the Chinese boxing. Some of them taught the judo, and someone taught the Kempo karate, and basically those are the guys that tried to form the Kaiju Kambo Association back in the late 60s. We tried very hard to get that going.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that there are different instructors, you could really see the different sides of the Ka, the Ju, the Ken, the Bo. So, and for you then, coming from Okinawan Karate, you felt that connection with the karate side from Grandmaster Gaylord.
It was right up my sleeve. The hardcore, doing the X pattern on the hardwood floors, and when we trained, we all never had mats and any of that kind of stuff. And Great Grandmaster Gaylord had a great dojo in Fremont, which was an old roller rink, which was huge, and had the old hardwood floors. So it gives you really take each other down, and and in those days we were in 20s and 23 years of age, and it was a real deal. The real deal. It was like you were in the streets.
Yeah.
And he emphasized the fact that you guys are a bunch of sissies. I'm going to take you to Hawaii. This is what's going to happen to you, and da 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 da. So we just kept hanging in there with him, and he was our spiritual and physical leader.
Spiritual and physical. All right.
When I told you about with Gaylord, when I used to go to the Palama settlement over in Hawaii with them, and then we had the tournament over there. Oh, funny part is a funny part I forgot to tell you. So we went to, if you have 5 minutes, we went
Yeah,
there.
go for it.
We fought at HIC at Honolulu International Convention Center, which is huge, like the Oakland Coliseum. So, but across the street from there was a guy named Godin, Godin,
Uh-huh.
and he was Gaylord's good buddy. So and he had us scared to death. Being a white person going to Hawaii, they're gonna kick your Holly's butt and this and that, and you know, I'm going, oh, I train with ankle weights on every day. I had 3-pound ankle weights on at work.
Uh-huh.
I was all feet.
Uh-huh.
And just scared to death to go fight there. I got my black belt too fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no experience fighting as a black belt. He just pushed me because he wanted me to get my black belt in the dojo, and I had no real experience fighting. Experienced fighter. So we went to Godin's dojo for a workout that week. As soon as we got there, like the next day, and we worked out, and the workout to me was like, I don't know, this is nothing compared to what I have to go through with GGMG. And afterwards, Godin had a small office, which I didn't ever see. We never had offices back those days in our dojos. We just had open space with a desk, you know. And after Godin says, "Hey, Wolfman, come here, man, come here, come in my office here. You want a primo?" I said, "What's a primo?" You go, "Primo, it's a beer." I was thinking, in a karate school, a beer? I was that straight, you know, I was that naive. And then after that, I was, okay, this is how they train? Cool, man. I got a shot. I got a shot. And
welcome to Hawaii.
We fought, the Kajukenbo team fought the All Japan team from Hawaiian Islands, okay? And they made us wear catcher's masks, face masks, baseball catchers, face masks, and never could make contact. They were so prejudiced. My front foot windmill worked for me my whole life. I was going to slap you in the face with it, and I kicked the face mask off the guy's head. Mm-hmm. No point. No point. We did win, but it was like, you know, you really had to step up to him. But
sound like an uphill battle, yeah.
Some good experience, and all because of him, you know.
Now, you mentioned at one point something about having to shave your head.
Yeah. So,
what was that about?
When I started learning from him, 5 months later, he had a special class in Fremont that went 3 nights a week from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and I had to drive from Richmond, which is at least a 45-minute drive every night there after work. And part of the deal was everybody had to shave their head. If you didn't want to shave your head, you take a hike. That's his attitude, which is cool. So we all shaved our head, and there was like, I don't know, 25 or 30 of us. And after about 3 months total, 3 of us graduated from that class and got our black belts. I mean, we were just really, really fit. We got beat on, kicked on, punched upon, club attacks, you name it, we did it. And we learned the real Hawaiian way that they taught him in Hawaii. It was really cool.
So it sounds like a hardcore training boot camp, and leading to the black belt at the end, huh?
I ended up being one of Grandmaster's favorite dummies. After a while, I just rolled with the uppercuts to the solar plexus, down to the groin, and just think, okay, here we go again. I was so fit from being hit, and luckily nothing ever really got seriously broken. So anytime we had a karate demonstration at the moment, tempo, or you name it, or basketball games back in those days, I was the one that was #1 dummy, and it was fine. It was a good experience, and I handed that down to all my students sooner, as time went by.
Every grandmaster has his favorite uke, favorite target dummy. That's definitely true.
That's right.
If you were to describe Great Grandmaster Gaylord, what was he like as a person? Who was he?
He was very positive. He was a real leader in a positive thinking and positive attitude, and you can do it. And never, there's no such thing as you can't. It was like the minute you mentioned can't, he would say like, find a way. Oh, I got it. Find a way. So he was the man. He was the real, to me, he was the real Kajukenbo overall instructor that taught the best system in the Kajukenbo system, because everybody has a little bit of different variation. And but bottom line, I visited all the other schools, and I didn't just stick with one person. I mean, when Great Grandmaster Gaylord took off for maybe about a year or two in the 70s, I went to a different dojo, and it was a Gung Fu school, and Gung Fu Kempo school, I should say. And it was okay, but it wasn't for a person with I was 5'11", and they were doing techniques that were down low to the ground, didn't fit into me. I didn't want to go on the ground. So where Grandmaster Gaylord, you know, he kept it upright and hold your stances, and so yeah, he had all the right techniques for us being the real deal.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, one interesting thing I find about Kaiju Kambo is that different people are going to gravitate to different parts of it depending on their body style, the way they fight, etc. As a former Marine, what made Kaiju so special for you?
Oh, it was the hardcore, being I was in machine guns and hardcore stuff, and when I was in the discipline that he expected, and we followed his directions, and there was no goofing off. It was serious business, which was right up my line, and that's what we taught. Back in those days, we didn't have kids. He had Kelly Gaylord. She was a cute thing. She had used to have 2 long ponytails, and she would come down there and show off and do demonstrations on pops when we went to demonstrations once in a while. That was kind of cool. She was a sweetheart. She was like his little boy.
Uh-huh.
And she fought like a boy, and she did everything she was her own person. And that's the other thing is Professor Gaylord, Frank Grandmaster Gaylord, also brought the women into karate at an early age. Elder Costco's had his wife. I had 4 black belts by 1969, 4 black belt women that were competing in tournaments. And we were one of the few schools, and that's because of his allowing the ladies to go out there. Where other people were saying, no, we don't want no women in this class. No, we're open-minded to everything, including physically challenged people. So we do everything.
Yeah, you mentioned physically challenged. At your school, you have some special curriculum for...
My son got in a bad car accident, became a quadriplegic, so I had to learn how to deal with him. So one of my other black belts got in a bad accident about the same time and was in a wheelchair. So I said, well, you know what? And Frank Lozano and Debbie Lozano, they said, hey, open up a dojo and we'll help you deal with him every day. So I said, well, okay, I'm going to start teaching self-defense physically challenged. There was nobody there to show you how, because every physically challenged person has a different challenge. So I was able to take my black belt and my son. We would go to adult living centers, and we would sit down, and they were in their wheelchairs. My boy couldn't do much, but my black belt, he could do all the blocks and all the strikes in the wheelchair. So therefore, I did. We were doing a lot of upper blocks to the side, groin grab, eye pokes, ear pokes, grab the hair, use the armrest to grab them by the hair and push their head into it, and it was really cool. And I learned a lot. And part of it, in order to get your black belt at my dojo, you have to learn pinions 13 to 20 with a physically challenged sitting in a chair, like you have no legs. Right. So, and all that has to do with open mind that Professor Gaylord always allowed us to have, whether it's women or physically challenged, go for it. Don't surrender. Just do the best you can always in your life.
Excellent. Yeah, and I do remember hearing as well that Grandmaster Gaylord would allow people to alter the techniques, but he would kind of look at it and say, that was good or that was bad. Did he ever get a chance to see your development for your son?
Yeah. For the challenge, he was cool with all that stuff. I didn't see him change much in it. A little block here, a little strike there, out of the 13 pinions that he taught us in those days. There was hardly any changes. His memory was good. It was good till the end. We enjoyed having him around, that's for sure.
Excellent. So what would you say was the biggest impact Grandmaster Gaylord had on Kaiju Kambo and on the world?
Well, he probably produced some of the best fighters that Kaiju Kambo ever had. And they knew when the Gaylord patch was on somebody's gi, or it says KAA on the gi, then it was very serious. that these guys are going to hit hard. They're not going to back down from nobody. And that's the street fighting techniques that he taught. And that's how it was. Back in 68, 69, he tried to form the Kajukenbo Association with El Reyes, Tony Ramos, Joe Habuna, Professor Gaylord, and there were a couple of people from Hawaii that were there at meetings, and they all ended up having different Kajukenbo associations after 2 or 3 years of trying to work it all out. And sadly, I wish they could have worked it out so the Kajukenbo would have all been under one symbol instead of the KSDI and KAA and KNF. And, sadly, the Kajukenbo was the best in the West at the time when we went to tournaments around the West Coast, full contact, katas, whatever. We just had a great bunch of enthusiastic people because of our leaders that showed us the proper way.
I see. And you feel that Gaylord had a lot of impact on that as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you showed a patch. You had a patch earlier. Do you have that patch with you?
Yes, the original patch that Professor Gaylord had. This is the Gaylord patch.
Yeah, that's it.
Can you kind of see it?
Oh yeah, that's old school right there.
That's his first patch that he ever had, and then when things changed, he went to the KAA, and then the other guys went to KSDI, and sadly nobody has it. They have the inner patch is the same, but the outer isn't. So.
How does the Grandmaster's teachings affected you over the years, as far as what's changed over the years, from karate style Okinawan in the 60s to the 90s to 2000s? We have to be able to adapt. How does that affect you?
Oh, the biggest difference is there's no more contact hardly with the individuals, because everybody's talking, you're hitting it too hard, and the parents are coming in. And when we have a dojo, we never allowed the parents to come until belt test time, and then after a while, then you couldn't let them watch the belt test either, because they were starting to film them and stuff, and so you kind of had to keep them out of the belt test too.
Yeah.
So it has changed dramatically, I think, as far as the development of you as an individual, learning from the beginning, where you have contact from the beginning. Getting punched in the stomach, you get the wind knocked out of you. Nothing heavy to the face. You don't want no brain damage, but I personally think that because of the helmets, we've saved a lot of people's lives. And even the gloves, it's not a sissy thing. It's a thing about, once you have brain damage, that's it. So with the helmets and the fighting, it's a different ball game. Plus, when you talk about fighting, I'll go back one more step. When back in the 60s and 70s, you didn't even know what a mouthpiece was. You didn't know what gloves were. You had tape on your arms. You taped your ankles, and you were pounding bricks with your knuckles every day, trying to toughen them up, and then it's just a different ball game compared to what it ended up being. But with the helmets, back in those days, we only had 6 or 7 tournaments a year. We had the California Championships. There was only one. When you had the international championships, there was only one. There was 4,000 people that would go to the internationals, and in San Francisco, and that's where the first time I saw Professor Gaylord. He was doing kata he was fighting in this California Championships that Ralph Castro used to put on, and I think it was in '65 that I happened to see him. I was very impressed with that. And then of course I saw the black uniforms, which when you're in Japan, you don't see black uniforms unless you take Aikido. So it was a different. And then going down and fighting in Los Angeles at the internationals, and all those white geese down there, and we come down there from little Richmond, California, and go home with the hardware. It was kind of cool, and all because of our instructor. His teacher never give up, and he didn't like the people too much. When the North fought the South, he always wanted to bring it back home. Well, bring it all back home.
All right. Now you mentioned you got to see Grandmaster fight. How was that?
It was interesting. Like in those days, you only had you fought for 3 points, and whoever gets the 3 points first. But a lot of times it ended up being like 1-0, like cat and mouse game, because you had you had one kick or one punch that you can deliver, but to the face you had to use control. And most of the time, unless you drew blood, they would disqualify you. But so it was a cat and mouse game. kind of like the Gung Fu guys in a circle and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's Grandmaster kind of fought like, because they didn't fight that much. They fought in the dojo and it was more for real. But in a tournament where they have referees, so you got, at one point you lost. So
Yeah.
it was more of a cat and mouse game. It was good contact when they had it. But it's a different ball game.
All right. Well, we're about finished. I just have one more question for you, Wolf, and we're finishing up for today. If you could pass any message on to Grandmaster Gaylord now, what would you want to tell him?
Oh, I want to tell him I was very thankful for him that he always led by example in life. And it was a great example for all of us to follow, physically and mentally.
All right. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, Wolf. It's been a real pleasure. I hope to talk to you again. You got a lot of great stories. And like I said before, I love your name. What is it like having that name Wolf anyway?
Well, it's kind of like when I go someplace and they say, what's your name? I say, Wolf. And they say, Wolf. I say, yeah, like dog.
That's it. Well, thank you again, Wolf. And those of you at home, thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for our next episode. This has been the KAA Kaiju Kambo Deep Dive. So we'll see you at the next time. Until then, stay strong, stay Kaiju Kambo strong.